We are joined on this episode by a writer, cinematographer, director, a Renaissance man, we dare say, the man behind the award-winning shorts When Sussur Stirs, The Bloody Ballad of Squirt Reynolds, as well as The Night He Came Back Again, parts 1 through, we can't just say just yet, but you'll see those in Paper Street's own Scare Package series. His latest feature, the found footage horror film Frogman, is now available on VOD digital to rent or buy. Here to talk with us about that and a whole lot more is our pal Anthony Cousins. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Heck yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, super stoked to get into Frogman today. It's definitely been a long time coming to have you on here. But the way we usually start is going all the way back to the beginning and asking how you got interested in filmmaking to begin with.
Well, I've been a cinephile for as long as I can remember. I remember watching horror movies since I was a kid. It was something that came on really early, and my parents thankfully fed into it rather than tried to shelter me from it, which was awesome of them. But as far as like getting serious about doing it, actually, there was some anniversary of Small Soldiers last year, and that made me remember that I wrote a script for Small Soldiers 2 when it came out because I was so obsessed with that movie.
Nice.
And even though I was young, I sort of had the feeling this was not going to get a sequel. Like somehow I just knew this is not the kind of movie that gets a follow-up, or maybe I kind of had a feeling it didn't do as well as it should to get a sequel. So I just wrote my own. So that was maybe my first entry into filmmaking. And then fast forward to college, I couldn't think of anything to go to college for, and movies were all I cared about at the time. So I went for film because I didn't know what the hell else to do with my life. And thankfully it's kind of worked out.
Did you meet your co-writer and some of your collaborators you continue with today at film school?
I did. Honestly, like a lot of people ask, was film school worth it? Would you recommend it? And I would say that is the biggest thing I got out of film school is before going into film school in college, I didn't know anyone else that liked movies enough to try and make them themselves. And that's where I really found my people. And yeah, my co-writer, John Karsko, we met at MCTC in Minnesota. Tons of people that I still work with. Ryan Shadley, that does all my effects, he didn't go there, but I met him on a film school project that someone hired him on. So yeah, that was the biggest thing, was like getting equipment in your hands, like learning how to use a camera when you've never tried to use a camera that strategically, learning how to light, that kind of stuff, and just meeting people, like-minded people that wanted to do it also.
I know you've done several different roles on set. While you were in film school, did you have a particular focus and direction you thought you were going to head down for your career?
So the way the film school I went to worked was it was a 2-year program. And the first year, everyone's learning the same stuff. And then the second year, you pick either directing, cinematography, editing, or screenwriting to focus on. And I think almost everybody thought they were going to go into directing. And for the second year program, there was only like 17 slots for each field. So they kind of set us up right away with like, look, not all of you are going to be back here next year as directors. It's just not going to happen. And I had no idea what I was doing filmmaking wise when I joined that school. And it turned out I had a bit of a knack for cinematography. And I started shooting other people's projects also. And I met a director there that was like super into horror, really charismatic, kind of had all the things that you would want in a director that I didn't have at the time. So that seemed like a perfect team up. And so I just teamed up with him. I was like, cool, I'll shoot everything. We could co-write and you direct, because I don't know how to do that. And yeah, he's not, that kind of like slowly fell apart after film school, and I ended up directing my own stuff. And that's kind of what led to me here. But I thought I was just going to stick on the cinematography train at first.
It's funny you mentioned we kind of skipped over this aspect of it, but you are nothing against it, but you are a genre guy. I think anybody who meets you, they know you might have the most amount of Fright Rags t-shirts known to man, but you are like horror first and foremost. I'm not saying that's the only thing you could do. Obviously, again, you've worked many crew positions, but were you always horror and genre focused, or was it in school that you kind of lean that way, or was it just always like you knew when you were going to start making stuff? Because when people hear cinematography, a lot of times they think hoity-toity or avant-garde cinema, and they don't think horror first. But Was it a balance that you love all of it, or like was horror always in the back of the mind?
I mean, I love everything, but like horror has just always been it for me. And especially, it's funny that you say that because that totally makes sense. And yet, from my perspective, horror was the most exciting genre to shoot because you have so much more freedom in lighting and just like everything visually. Like the visual language of horror is so much more free than every other genre. Maybe sci-fi, but sci-fi is so hard to do on a budget. But like that's where you really get to play. That's where you get to do stuff like Dario Argento, which is having insane colors coming from nowhere. So that was always really exciting to me. And I think, transitioning into directing, where that has really benefited me is I learned how to shoot effects, which is something that I think a lot of people learn by fire when they trial by fire when they shoot their first effects heavy movie. They go, oh, this doesn't like work the way I thought it does. Like every effect needs to have different lighting and you need to find the angle that truly sells it. Like you can't just shoot it from anywhere. And that's something I really learned early on is like, okay, if we're going to make horror movies, the kills are the star, the monster is the star, like the effect is the star. So the first conversation I almost always have is with whoever's doing the effects. Like, how do we shoot this? Here's how we're going to light this. Here's the type of location this is going to be in. So like, what kind of color palette are you going to go for? I can't tell you how many times I've been on set with my buddy Ryan, and then he sees the thing on set that he created, and the way they're lighting it completely like washes out the paint job he did. And it's like, well, had I known that you were going to light this with red, I would have painted it with something else, It's just weird stuff like that that's become really handy going forward.
Yeah, I can definitely see how having that appreciation from a cinematographer's perspective, especially in the horror space, will definitely pay off when we get into Frogman too. I think, which definitely has some key effects. I'm curious, when did you transition into some paid like writing or directing or cinematography gigs out of school, or did you immediately focus on some of your short films through like DIY, self-funded processes?
Right out of film school, the only thing I was doing that was kind of paid in the filmmaking world was maybe like a music video here and there, and gripping. As I got into gripping afterwards, which is like lighting side of things on set. I didn't start directing until When Susurrus Stirs, which I was looking for someone else to direct that, and nobody really wanted to do it. I just wanted to write it and shoot it. Like I was thinking of the fun visuals that we would create for that short, and I wanted that stuff for my cinematography reel, and then nobody wanted to touch it as a director. So I ended up putting the entire thing together, doing an Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever it was, and directing by necessity. And I didn't even plan on directing past that. And then it went really well and I had a blast doing it. And it was well received enough that I gave it another try the following year with Squirt Reynolds. But so that's kind of the first few years out of film school for me.
Nice. And obviously, if anyone's not seen those, I believe they both can be found on Alter at the moment, but they are online. When Susurrus Stirs and Bloody Ballad of Squirt Reynolds are very much worth a watch. I will say that Anthony and Chris McEnroy, who he's also pals with, were the first two people that we had written on the short list for Scare Package 1, because they got exactly what we were going for, which is horror comedy, which is a thing I know some horror fans dismiss outright, and some, they don't get it right. But when you do get it right, it's magic. And I think Becky and I both, love Raimi Evil Dead type stuff. And Anthony's shorts are a big reason why he's part of the, not just a real life director, but an in-universe Scare Package director. That wasn't a question, nor do you need to follow up to it. Just more of a compliment. No, let's segue to the main attraction here. You were also on the very first short list for this podcast, so it was a long time coming getting you on. As Becky said, you were somebody we kind of were waiting to have that kind of feature we could promote with you, other than just being like, hey, here's our friend Anthony who's in Scare Package also. We've done enough of that. It's wank fest that is the Paper Street podcast. No, we're more than happy to promote it. So the first question about Frogman we have, though, is like, what was the germ, the idea for the story? Like, did you first have the idea for a cryptid tale? Was it a found footage feature in your brain? What came first, the Frogman or the egg?
Man, it was such a perfect storm, because anyone that follows me on Instagram knows I'm kind of frog obsessed in general. And of course, I love monsters. That goes without saying. And I love found footage. I genuinely do. And at the time, I guess this all started around like early 2019. It was like I had a couple feature scripts ready to go. Couldn't really get anything off the ground. Couldn't find the money to get anything rolling. And I did start to wonder, like, what the hell could I just do with nothing? maybe we do just start with found footage. And of course, that's kind of what everyone goes to when they have nothing, for good reason. But it also was not just out of necessity. Like, I do love the genre. And then Frogman came on my radar when we were shooting a short film of John's, my co-writer. He had this like map of cryptids across the US in this radio station as like art direction. And in Ohio was the Loveland Frogman, just this like bipedal frog holding a magic wand. I mean, the fact that he has an accessory, right away he stands out from everyone else. Like, no other cryptid comes with like a weapon or whatever. And he was a frog. So of course I gravitated towards that and researching it. I'm just like, my God, this is fascinating. Like, I mean, he's a legitimate cryptid. The sightings go back to 1955. So he's got history, and yet most people have never heard of him. And so like that just all culminated in a perfect storm of like, well, what if we wrote a script around our buddy Nate, who has, he's in Squirt, he's in Susurrus. He just runs around the woods anyways, on his own accord. He's just kind of a nature wild man. So it was like, well, what if we just write a script about him running in the woods after Frogman? And that's kind of where it all began. And then there is a lot of Lovecraftian elements in it, I'll say. And that's from my obsession with the Shadow over Innsmouth, which finds its way into like every story I want to do. Like, it's just, so if I can turn it into Innsmouth, I will.
I don't want to tangent on that. Becky will tell you exactly what's on the shared document. I have a follow-up question, and it was, did you watch like Willow Creek or Legend of Boggy Creek or anything with the word creek in it for research? But I had a shot in the dark ask was, were you inspired at all by Shadows of Over Innsmouth? And I don't want to spoil why, but there's a moment where like Redacted kind of does something to Redacteds, and it truly made me think of that. And I was like, oh, so perfect. So Becky will attest that is on the document, though. I was really going to ask you about
John's
that. John's
not lying.
H.P. Lovecraft story.
That's why we got a big cackle from him.
That checks out. That tracks with Anthony and his fandoms and things. Like, of course he knows that story.
Oh yeah, I think that is his best story. I think it's like definitely his like most cinematic story, and that's like a pie in the sky, like, sky's the limit budget wise project. I would love to just adapt that story like so much. But we tried to shoot the hotel escape. For anyone that knows the story, like, it's the most exciting part is like the townspeople are coming after the main character, and he has to like escape his hotel room. And we tried to shoot that in Frogman, and it went horribly wrong. It turns out that's a really hard scene to pull off in found footage when you have like 10 people there to play the whole town. So that didn't make the cut, but we tried.
I'm curious about some of your other research while you're diving into the cryptid lore and everything with Frogman. Were there any particularly strange stories or encounters that you read about, or maybe a story that made you kind of believe that it might be true?
It's so weirdly specific to like I've talked about this before, like, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, there's a little bit of like reality basis for those creatures, right? Like, they're not out of the realm of possibilities. And then there's also something to be said for like why you might think you saw a Mothman. If Mothman doesn't exist, like maybe you saw the reflection catching an owl's eyes and like he was just perfectly sat above a bush that looked like a body or something like that, With Frogman, I don't understand how multiple people accidentally saw a 4-foot frog with a wand. That's just so specific. So I've always thought there's something to it. And then I'll say we went to Frogman Festival, which is in Loveland, Ohio. It's a celebration of Frogman. They just had their second year this past March. And I met the son of one of the police officers that saw Frogman in like, I think it was like the 70s or something like that. And talking to him, I definitely believe, because he's like, my dad is like so basic, like he's not into monsters, he's not into like storytelling, like he would never make something like this up. And he also does not want to talk about it. Like, he does not want any fame or recognition from the fact that he saw the Frogman. Like, I think if he could go back in time, he probably would just have not said anything. And that to me really says something, because like that's how a lot of these people that have sightings are, is like, they don't want anything from it. And eventually they don't even want any attention because of it. So I think that makes me believe more than anything.
Ooh, that's interesting. And I was also on our shared document going to ask you about the Frogman Festival. I am curious how the cryptid community in general, and especially those that are really into Frogman, have responded to the film. Have you gotten much feedback from them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, it's hard to think of any negative feedback we've gotten. I don't think we've gotten anything negative from the cryptid world, thankfully. Some just from film fans in general, but cryptid wise, everyone's been really excited about it, really receptive. I was definitely afraid of how Loveland was going to take it because we don't necessarily like paint them in the nicest light. But the funny thing is, when we made this movie, Loveland like doesn't celebrate Frogman whatsoever. They don't embrace him. Even the Frogman Festival that's happening now is put on independently by an Ohio resident. It's not connected to the city. And I even talked to people from Loveland, Ohio that had never heard of them. So I was like, okay, it kind of feels like we have, the basis to do whatever the hell we want. Because there doesn't seem to be like a passionate, fandom around him that's going to like hold us to, reality or whatever. And then this festival popped up after we had already shot the movie, and it was like, oh shit. It was like a lot of people showed up for it, and it was like, damn, all right, we'll see how they take it. But it was really, really positive and just kind of an insane experience to be at a festival that is specifically like to celebrate the thing you made a movie about when that didn't exist before you made the movie. It's just kind of wild.
I'd pay money to have the guy you talked to at that festival show the film to his dad and get a like live camera reaction to see like how he truly reacts. It sounds like he was tormented by this thing and doesn't want to talk about it. But yeah, it's amazing that those cryptid folk can be like really extreme and intense. But I'm glad they've been. Becky, honestly, did you know this was a real cryptid before the movie? Because I did not.
No, I don't think I did.
Honestly, I done some research after the fact and found out, I'm like, oh God, he really has a wand. I thought this was just Anthony doing, a little bit of creative liberties and stuff, but no.
The creative liberty we were going to take originally was not giving him the wand, because it was like, let's make a movie about the real creature that maybe inspired these legends. And it was like, well, a wand is crazy. Let's take that out. And then we got deep into filming, and it was like, we're making a Frogman movie. He's got to have the wand. Like, that's the best part of the legend. I can't believe we ever thought we could do it without it.
Are you carrying that wand around on the roadshow tour you're doing?
Dude, you know it.
Yeah, I know you would. Really cool. Well, we'll get to that in a minute because there's a meta ending I don't want to spoil, but we'll kind of ask about that. But to the point about the creature himself, possibly the cutest cryptid we've seen in a minute. I don't want to spoil that either, but it's still frightening. But yeah, you mentioned Ryan Chatterley, previous guest of the program, Becky Ingram, among others. They killed it with the makeup effects for the titular cryptid. But did that design go through a lot of iterations? Did you have some sketches that were way off, or did it always kind of have that look in mind for you from the jump?
There was a few iterations, although, I mean, if you saw the photo that I kept coming back to, it was like the most adorable photo of a frog imaginable, with like almost unrealistically like big, like cute eyes, like an anime character. And I just kept coming back to that. I'm like, I don't think he should look sinister. I don't think he should like look scary or ugly. I think he should just look like a big frog. And frogs are cute. Like, I think that would be kind of funny and kind of interesting if he's like not inherently evil. He's just doing his thing. And yeah, I'm glad that for the most part has come across, that this is found footage satire. I think someone recently said like, the best satire aims to make a movie that could fit in the catalog that it is, parodying, versus making something that's just completely making fun of that catalog and ripping it off. And that's what we really aimed to do, was like hoping everyone could find the humor and the absurdity in this, but like take it seriously.
100%. I think you really succeed well in that. And speaking of the found footage genre itself, I think a lot of people have misconceptions that they're really easy to shoot. It's all just run and gun. What were some of the unexpected challenges you encountered?
Oh man, I feel like all my like 10 plus years of filmmaking like kind of went out the window when we started making Frogman. Like, if you've never made a found footage movie before, it's like starting from square one. And I think the only thing, and it is probably the most important lesson from filmmaking, and it does carry over no matter what you're doing, is like all filmmaking is and all directing is problem solving. Like every single step of the way, like something doesn't work the way you thought it would, or like someone doesn't show up that was supposed to show up, or like you lose a little, like whatever. And that was still a part of the process. But besides that, like, man, it was so weird. Like, not only having to justify why they're filming at all times, but like, why is the camera where it is? And also, how are we going to get in and out of this scene? Because you can't you have very, very little wiggle room to edit at all, without breaking the effect, you know? So it was also like a lot of that of like, well, how long does this scene go on? Because now we're married to this is 6 minutes of the movie. There's no way to cut around that. So that's like baked into our runtime. So it was a lot of weird stuff like that. I do think there's some truth to when people say like found footage is easy. It is easy to do. It's very, very difficult to do right and to make something that's watchable. But yeah, I mean, it's super easy to do. It might not be good.
Were the effects particularly challenging to shoot and make them feel authentic in a found footage format?
Oh yeah. And I think it's debatable how successful we were at that. But thankfully, like shit's already hit the fan and things are crazy by the time the effects show up. But yeah, that was weird because like I said earlier, when you're shooting an effect, you kind of map out where it's going to be seen, how it's going to be lit, what the angle is. And with found footage, you want to be able to leave a little bit of wiggle room to keep it authentic and to keep the camera moving. So that was really, really difficult. And, we start writing Frogman 2 in a couple of weeks, and we're going to go a lot bigger with the effects. So, but I think we learned a lot from the first one of like, okay, what works, what doesn't work. But now we got to figure out how to do that even more.
Frogman 2, you heard it here. Maybe first, I don't know.
F2, Judgment Day.
I want to talk about something else. Speaking of the wand, as Dallas has it at the end, without spoiling too much of that ending, did you guys always have this meta ending in mind, or where did that come about? Because it certainly threw me for a loop when I watched it. I was not expecting it, I should say.
Yeah, it was always, I think from even before we started writing the first draft, I knew I wanted it to end in a movie theater because that's something in all the found footage movies I've seen, I haven't seen. And 9 times out of 10, nobody survives the found footage movie that you're watching. So I thought it would be really fun if at the end we reveal like, someone did survive. The movie that you just watched is the movie that they put together from their experience. And here we are at the premiere of the movie.
I love that. Speaking of the premiere of the movie and it releasing and everything, I thought it was really cool that you did the VHS release via Lunch Meet. And it's sold out. That's so awesome. I just wanted to say like congrats on that because I don't know how often things like that sell out, but it's really cool that there was enough demand and the green VHS is really cool looking.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was something, we considered distributors and then we ultimately decided to self-distribute. And that was something I was really excited about trying when we didn't really have anyone to answer to. It was like, this movie shot on high 8. So like, honestly, VHS is the best way to watch this movie, in my opinion. And what if we just released on VHS for even a little bit? Like, that's the only way you could see it. I thought that would be really fun because obviously you can't do the Blair Witch thing anymore where you release it and people think it's maybe real or you're like dropping VHS tapes here and there. Like that has been done and just doesn't work in a modern era. So it was like, this is, at least a little bit of that.
So any plans? I know you mentioned some other possible physical medias. Do you have a Blu-ray on the way?
Yes, we do. I'm putting the special features together right now. They're going to be super fun because I'm a physical media junkie and I get super pissed off when I buy something and there's just the movie on there. So it's gonna be packed with stuff and we'll be announcing that really soon.
Very cool. And again, the reason we have you on this show is to also tell folks available now, Frogman is to rent or buy on VOD digital, be it iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, and wherever you buy or rent movies. So we're very happy to be able to talk about it with you. And again, you're a member of the, not just a Scare Package family, the Paper Street family, at least we consider you as such. And yeah, everybody go check out Frogman.
Heck yeah. Thank you guys.
All right, we were over here tapping and singing to Frogman, The Devil's Cry, which is a little bit of an earworm at the end of the movie that I've been singing since I watched it. But we are here with Anthony Cousins still. We are going to segue to the Rapid Fire 15, which I think we've gone over with him as a little bit of like a Proust questionnaire from inside the actor studio, but we kind of tried to tailor it toward Anthony and crap we know about Anthony, and he can tell us the crap he likes. That's really what it's about, his taste in different genre stuff. So, Becky, you want to start us off?
All right, without further ado, question 1. What movie do you think you have seen the most in your life?
Ooh, damn. It's either Titanic or Evil Dead.
Yeah, they go together
Double
so
tap.
I was
well.
expecting one of those answers. Interesting. Okay. Is there a movie, show, song, you may have just mentioned it, that always makes you emotional or brings you to tears?
Oh my God, Titanic. Titanic and The Greatest Showman, and to still keep some of my horror credibility, I'll say The Fly. I cry every time at the end of The Fly.
Nice. I think somebody brought up Titanic recently too as an answer to that. I want to say when
I think it was our most recent guest, Lucy Campbell.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a classic. So
It's a
classic
perfect movie.
tearjerker.
It's
Yeah.
timeless.
James Cameron, man. All right. Question 3. What is the first film that really scared you or stuck with you and gave you nightmares?
Ooh, I know for sure I had nightmares about Gremlins, even though I didn't find that movie scary at all. And I absolutely loved it and watched it over and over. I remember having nightmares about them for sure. But Zelda from Pet Cemetery still haunts my dreams. I've never gotten over that.
No, good answers for sure. This question trips some folks up, but I feel like you'll have a more definitive answer than a lot of folks. What is your favorite horror movie franchise?
The Evil Dead.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's so versatile. And it doesn't have a bad entry yet.
I was about to say it has one of the better batting averages of any of them. I agree.
For sure. Question 5. What is your favorite horror movie subgenre?
Man, I love so many, but I think if I had to pick one, it's body horror. I think it's so much fun to play in. There's like so many different ways you can go with it, and it always works. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going on with you mentally if body horror can't get to you because it's so relatable. Like having your body invaded, and changing against your own will is just like the scariest thing of all time. And like we are all susceptible to it. We're aging, we get sick, we get viruses. So like all of that is body horror to me.
Related question, and could be this exactly, but I will get more specific. Is there a particular horror movie trope or subgenre that always gets under your skin? So if you do say body horror, give me like is it eyeballs? Is it teeth? Is it, do you have a trope or a subgenre that always truly irks you, even though you're watching pretend?
Man, that's so funny because even though like body horror affects me like that, like like none of that stuff gets like teeth, nails, none of that stuff gets to me. Honestly, the horror that like follows me past the movie is always supernatural stuff. I just saw Dutch's Horror in the High Desert 3, and there's a moment in that movie that I cannot get out of my head. And every night since, when the lights are out, I like run to my bed as quick as I can because I'm like certain that there's something behind me. So like movies like The Grudge, Paranormal Activity, yeah, anything with like a good effective haunting, terrified, like those follow me past the movie.
Yeah, I think you can definitely see yourself in those situations too when you're lying in bed at night. So I totally get that. And I'm so excited for Horror in the High Desert 3 too. You're several big horror fans that I really trust have said it scared them, and that just gets me really excited.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Question 7. What is your favorite example of practical effects makeup in a movie?
Oh man, that's tough. I guess if I had to go with one, it's probably going to be the American Werewolf in London transformation. That's probably like the most obvious answer, but man, it works so well.
Yeah, there's a reason that it's held in such high regard.
No, indeed. Speaking of creatures, in honor of Frogman and cryptids, what is your personal favorite urban legend / creature legend / cryptid story?
I mean, I really do love Frogman. I'm not just saying that.
Do you happen to, well, that's a fair answer. Do you have one up in the Minnesota area, or is it just more Bigfoot forest legends?
Right. Yeah, I mean, if there's woods, there's Bigfoot as far as like every small town now is concerned. I don't think Minnesota, to my knowledge, doesn't really have anything super exciting. There's some haunted places. There's like this weird guy that was like found frozen in ice somewhere else, but somehow he ended up in Minnesota, and now I think he's in Austin, Texas. But he's like some sort of missing link, frozen man, which is part of the cryptid lore, I guess. But yeah, I want to keep making cryptid movies, and I want to keep going for the lesser known ones that are like super cool. In my opinion, like the Flatwoods Monster is kind of next up on my list. I think that creature is so unique and so awesome. It's in West Virginia. West Virginia is just like teeming with creatures. It's really strange. And then the Fresno Nightcrawler in Fresno, California, which is like literally just phantom pants walking around the woods by themselves, which I think is like so adorable and hilarious.
I'm here for it. The
I've not heard of
cryptid
that
universe.
Fresno.
Dude,
But I love it.
look up the Fresno Nightcrawler. There's multiple videos of this thing, and
I love
they're
it.
equally like hilarious and creepy.
Hashtag phantom pants. I just like that phrasing.
It reminds me of the movie Slacks a little
Oh
bit.
yeah.
All right, now for a completely different question. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh, I do know this. It was Christina Applegate in Married with Children, which I was super, super young, but I guess I called it the Kelly Show because that's the only reason I wanted it turned on because her character was named Kelly. So I'd ask my parents to put on the Kelly Show.
That's adorable.
I like that answer. This is something I've been waiting to ask you since I finally met Anthony at Telluride Horror, Becky, in person, that is. And we bonded over Muppets. So I must ask Anthony Cousins, who is your favorite Muppet?
Oh man, I feel like that's a revolving door, but
Well, that's fair. You can give a couple.
it's I think it like right now and for a long time it's been Pepe the King Prawn. Like that guy is a baller.
I don't even know who that is.
He's a newer Muppet, I think.
Come on, Becky.
Come on.
Oh, that one. I looked it up. The one with the like Coolio hair.
Yeah, the Coolio. There's like photos of him wearing this weird outfit that like The Rock wore back in the day. This like black turtleneck with like a gold chain around him. I mean, he's like Pepe is a weirdo, dude. But he's got drip.
He does. He's been a mainstay since Muppets from Space, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Disney's tried a few different things, but they did like this like Muppet variety show, which I only got a couple episodes into, but he had his own game show on that. And like I think it's in the first or second episode, like I was crying. It was so funny.
All right.
Moving on. Becky didn't grow up with Muppets. We got it.
Yeah, I don't have the same connection. But question 11. Do you have a favorite film festival experience or a theater screening? Doesn't have to be with your own movie, or it could be with your own film.
I mean, like Frogman at Telluride Horror Show kind of takes the cake for me.
Yay, I was there.
Yeah, that was so insanely awesome. I mean, like everyone that knows me knows like Telluride is my favorite weekend of the year. And when it comes to, like making a movie and submitting it to festivals, that's the one I care most about. Because honestly, I'd show up even if I got rejected. I'd just come as a fan anyways. But like, it's always nice to have a reason to have to be there. And yeah, I mean, at that point, I didn't, you get so deep, like 3.5 years into making a movie, you don't know what you've done anymore. And you don't know if it's cool or not. Like you couldn't be more disinterested in a movie than one you've been with for 3.5 years. There's just no way to even comprehend how someone would feel watching it that has no idea like all the bullshit that went into it. And it's just seen it with fresh eyes. And the fact that we had like 2 packed shows and everyone for the most part loved it was just like a dream come true. And it was the first time I finally talked a bunch of friends into coming out with me, because I think I've only ever been to Telluride by myself. I mean, obviously I've made friends there and like everyone there is family now, but like, my Minnesota film family, I was like, you guys gotta come if we get in. And thankfully a lot of people did.
Yeah, and I think not just a packed house. I know at least the first screening was completely sold out. They had to turn people away at the door. So
yeah, that was surreal.
Yeah. It was crazy.
So question 12, Anthony, do you have a favorite concert you've ever attended or a very memorable concert experience that stands out?
Oh yeah. I went to Bonnaroo for the first time last year, which was like my first music festival outside of like Warped Tour when I was a teenager. And we went to see Shaq, as in Shaquille O'Neal, DJ a set. And it was amazing. I felt like Shaq entered my body and possessed me. He would constantly stop the music and like make demands of everybody and threaten us that he was going to come out in the crowd if he didn't see a mosh pit. And he's just like, "Where's my mosh pit? Don't make me come out there." And that was, I think about it all the time. That was the greatest time I've ever had.
Oh my, that was not the answer I was expecting, but that sounds like completely magical and like unexpected in all the best ways.
Right. I didn't even know until we went that he was DJing. And all I can say is if you get the chance to catch Shaq, or I think he goes by DJ Diesel or something like that, you gotta go. I also saw Charlie XCX on Halloween night in London one time. Actually, that was right before COVID hit, so that was really special too.
Oh, awesome. All right. Another music themed question. Do you have a go-to karaoke song? Even if you don't normally do karaoke, do you have a song that you think you could maybe kind of do?
I mean, I know for a fact I could not do any song justice. For a long time, it was Wanted, Dead or Alive, but I would only do it as a duet by Bon Jovi. But I really want to do What's Up. Like, if someone can talk me into doing karaoke again, I want to do What's Up.
Like Four Non Blondes, What's Up?
Yeah.
Oh, rock and roll.
I think I could convince you.
That's just such a fun one to sing.
Yeah, I'll invite you to our next karaoke night. We have a good place to get private rooms at. I think
yeah.
I'll convince you.
Let me know when, because I will show up and do the Richie Sambori part of Wanted, Dead or Alive with him. After a couple bits of
Sounds good. Invites going your way too, Sean.
I'm a cowboy. All right, anyway, question 14. If you could program a double feature of any two films in the world for the world to know you, like maybe it's showing your two wolves, the two different parts of Anthony Cousins, or maybe just a double feature of two, Titanic and Evil Dead. Like what's the perfect double feature? Like say Panic Fest lets you program one, the Anthony Cousins special. What are you giving us for a double feature?
If anyone is crazy enough to give me permission to screen whatever I want, that movie is always going to be the Super Mario Brothers from '93 because people need to come around. And thankfully,
yes.
But that movie is a fucking masterpiece. And I genuinely love it so much. And non-ironically, I think it is hilarious and amazing. And it's exactly what it means to be. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful mess. And there's a few movies I could see teaming up with that. Hell Comes to Frogtown, I feel like is kind of in the same echelon of like man enters city populated by humanoid creatures. Or there's this weird kids movie from the 90s called Adventures in Dinosaur City, where these kids get sucked into a cartoon, this dinosaur cartoon. Do you know it?
I do, yeah.
Oh my God, nobody knows this movie. It's so weird. There's like Triceratops wearing like greaser leather jackets and stuff. So that might be the greatest night of my life. I got to watch Super Mario Brothers Adventures in Dinosaur City.
I absolutely love that. And I'm Googling Adventures in Dinosaur City, and I have seen it. Now that I see the images, I do remember that from childhood.
I have I'll bring VHSs to show as the pre-show of both Dino Saucers, the pilot episode, animated weird-ass cartoon, and Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which was also, I think, a pilot that didn't take off as a cartoon. So we're all on the same wavelength, Anthony. Don't worry.
Yeah, around that time, there was a lot of dinosaur-themed kids content.
Yeah, like is it Prehysteria or something like that, where there's like miniature dinosaurs? Yeah, lots of dinosaur stuff.
We talk boutique Blu-ray labels on here a lot. And Umbrella, to your point about Mario Brothers, is putting out a ridiculous thing that you can pre-order right now. The Mario Brothers movie is one of the most jam-packed, special feature-filled movies right now. But Tammy and the T-Rex is another one that somehow got a 4K release from Vinegar Syndrome of all things. So yeah, speaking of dinosaur movies.
Oh yeah, oh my God, I love Tammy and the T-Rex. And I'm trying to talk myself into buying that Mario thing. It's like $100.
That's the thing. There's like a few different versions of it, but the Supreme one is like absurdly priced.
Yeah. And then shipping's like $40. So it's like, that is a real commitment that I don't know if I can make at the moment, but
we'll link a tip jar for Anthony here on our show notes later.
There you go.
On my Mario obsession.
Yeah. One last note on the Super Mario's movie. My daughter, I've showed her scenes from it, and her response, as a 10-year-old was, I think the people that made this were on drugs, Mom. I'm like, maybe things work differently. And, at that time, we thought about things very differently. But
cocaine was still around in the 90s. It wasn't just those 80s movies that people were like, oh, they must have been so cocaine.
It's an accurate assessment.
Yes, for sure. All right. Last question of the Rapid Fire 15. What would your dream project be to make? And you might have hinted at this earlier, actually. If it's an original idea, an IP you want to adapt, or maybe a Lovecraft story that you want to adapt, what would be your dream project?
I have 3 really quick. Yeah, one is Shadow over Innsmouth, just like doing that right, doing it dark and spooky and actually have shadows in it. Because like Dagon's a super fun movie and it's weirdly like super lit. There's just like lights everywhere, which is interesting. Bucky O'Hare, which I don't know if you guys remember that from the 90s. It was like kind of like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Jesus, man. Yeah, you're hitting some member berries on me right now.
Yeah, right. That, I mean, it was short lived and it didn't get a whole lot, but man, I just love the image of that badass green bunny in space. And he's got like a 4-armed duck friend. And yeah, I would want to just make a $200-300 million movie, like live action version of that. And just like go for like a hard R, like Guardians of the Galaxy, if it could be like hard R, I think would be super fun. It's for literally nobody but me, I think. So that's never going to happen. And then there's this book called Biomelt by Carlton Mellick, who also wrote Every Time We Meet for Ice Cream, Your Whole Fucking Face Explodes, which I made into a short. And it's this world where to downsize the prison population, they figure out this new technology to melt people down and then combine them into a new person with like the best traits of everybody. And it gets out of the prison system. Everyone's like, well, this is kind of awesome. Actually, like I suck at math. I'd like to melt with this guy that's really good at numbers and we can like be a better human and have a better life. And it turns into this crazy cyberpunk nightmare. And I think it would be so much fun to make as a musical. So that I guess that's my real dream project, because that's like completely original and hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, you just like described, like a better Repo the Genetic Opera.
Yeah, and it's a high time, I think, that we have another good horror opera. It's been a while. I like Repo. I mean, obviously, Rocky Horror is still a hit every, Saturday at midnight somewhere. And like, let's try to make another one. Can't have enough of those.
No, we're there. Yep, we're with you.
But yeah, that concludes the Rapid Fire 15. And those are some good all-timer answers, I think, among them. But yeah, we appreciate you sticking through with it. And again, I want to say Frogman, now available to rent or buy on any VOD digital outlets. You know them all, Amazon, Vudu, iTunes, and such. So please check this movie out. We will tag Anthony in some places to find it too in the show notes at paperstreetpodcast.com. For you, Mr. Cousins, is there anything you can tell us about what's next? Anything you can promote that's not a secret still, or no?
I mean, no one's told me that Frogman 2 is a secret, so I guess I'll just promote that. We're going to start writing that and try and have that out as soon as possible. Definitely not going to take another 3.5 years like the first one. We know how to do this now, so I think we can fast track that.
Wow, my brain just started racing because of, again, the meta ending I don't want to spoil. Like, I feel like there's a couple fun ways you could go with that. Like, that group chasing after him. I don't know, again, redacted. we won't spoil the movie. I hope, but I'm sure you've already hatched it, so that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, we can't wait. It's going to be fun.
And I really want a cryptid multiverse too. So
me too. Yeah, I want to see the Flatwoods monster. Yeah.
Hopefully that's what is there just a super evil cryptid that the other cryptids could team up to go against?
We've talked about what cryptid that would be.
Yeah, because I mean, he's got a wand, man. He's got to lead a team.
Right? Yeah, he's our Doctor Strange.
For real.
I wouldn't be mad if, that's my life right now. Back to James Cameron. I'm in the Frogman business, I guess.
Love it.
Committing to it till you die.
Yeah.
He's doing blue people. You're doing green bipedal frog people.
Maybe we can cross over.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony. It was a pleasure to chat Frogman, and also it's nice to learn a bit more about you and your background and how you ended up where you are today.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, like I said, we've been trying to have you on for a good while, and we're happy to finally have a feature with your name on it we can talk about. And it's the first of many, and not the last time we'll see you in the Paper Street and Scare Package universe either. So
yeah, that's super exciting to hear. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks again, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.